Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. I got a little special program tonight, be repeated once more this week, an open letter to my grandson, Milo. And it's going to be a bit about Milo, his background, our family background here in Winsted, and then some lessons learned from the town of Winchester when I actually read the letter to Milo. On this program, I'll be reading an open letter to my 9-year-old grandson, Milo, who lives in Maine, but has deep family roots in Winsted. I will first update you about the family roots and tell you a bit about Milo, and then I will read the letter. My great-grandfather, William R. McGrain, lived at 77 Pratt Street, and the house is still standing. You'll see a picture of my great-grandfather in the middle of those children and ladies in front of his house on Pratt Street, 77 Pratt Street. The house is still standing. I have been told that he enlisted in the Union Army underage and fought in the Civil War. He carried a Confederate bullet in his leg for the rest of his life. When he returned from the Civil War, he worked in the local knife factory here in Winsted and acquired some land near Lovely Street, off of Pratt Street, right up the street from his house, that he later partially sold to the Canavos for conducting their nursery business. He died at the age of 93 with a bullet from the Civil War still in his leg. He is buried in Winsted, and his name is inscribed with those of others inside the Civil War Soldiers Monument on Crown Street. His Union Army discharge paper still hangs sacredly on the wall of my father's cousin's home on Pratt Street. My father's cousins, one of them just died recently at a few weeks from 100 years old, and the other one is in a nursing home, and she's a few months, I think, from 100 years old. My paternal grandmother, Catherine, was his daughter. She married Frank O'Haron, my grandfather, the son of a farmer from Highland Avenue in Torrington. After her first husband died, Frank fiddled and jigged while he drove his horse and carriage, and then, of course, later he drove trucks, delivery trucks, and he couldn't fiddle and jig, of course, while doing that. But he also wrote songs. He played the fiddle on his knee, not on his shoulder like you see violinists do or modern fiddlers. They had 4 children, the youngest of whom was my father. When she passed prematurely from a fatal illness, my grandfather eventually married another Winsted woman, Mary, they called her Mame, Burke. I haven't been able to trace her back through the records in Winsted, but I'm still trying to see from whom she descended and who else was related. Whenever I see a Burke, I ask them if they're related to Mary. She would be, I don't know, 120 now if she had lived. When I showed Milo the picture you see now and explained who each person was, he began to memorize it and point out the relationship of each person in the picture. Joyce's maternal grandmother, Milo's great-great-grandmother, came to Torrington from Hungary as a young girl in the late 1800s with her mother and father. Milo's great-great-great-grandmother and grandfather, and her sister and brother. Her mother soon returned to Hungary. Joyce's grandmother's mother soon returned to Hungary, and her father placed the children in the Winsted's Gilbert home. They were there for 3 years or so in the early 1900s. While they were at the Gilbert home, their father walked from Torrington to Winsted and back on weekends and holidays to visit his children at the Gilbert home. When I was attending Kansas University in the late 50s, early 60s, I met my wife Joyce at a friend's cottage at Highland Lake when I was on summer vacation. In 1974, while living in London after we were married, many years after we were married, we purchased a summer cottage and boathouse at Highland Lake, formerly owned by the Burge family from Hartford or West Hartford, I think, because we liked the quiet, peaceful lake at that time, and there was no room for our family in our parents' homes when we returned for brief holiday visits. They both had small homes with only 1 or 2 bedrooms, and it was very difficult for us to be there. We moved here just before I retired in the year 2000 or so, and sold our other homes in other states. Joyce and I have one grandson. His name is Milo. Milo is 9 years old and growing up very rapidly. Milo lives in Yarmouth, Maine, a sleepy little town along the water and close to the neighboring town of Freeport, well known for its factory outlet stores, at least one of which remains open all night. And I usually get up in the middle of the night when I'm up there for one reason or another because I can't sleep, and I go up to the stores that are open all night right around the corner from my daughter's home. Yarmouth is just past the shipbuilding town of Portsmouth on the way north. It takes about 5 hours to get there from Winsted, with a rest stop or 2 along the way. Milo's mother and father operate their own filming and editing business that they initially started in their home. They're now starting to move into other quarters because the business is growing and their children need more space, etc. They're very successful with this business. I'm told that Yarmouth has a very good school system. It's one of the reasons I think they moved there. Milo is now in the 3rd grade and is very good at mathematics. So as I told you in the beginning, he was attentive to detail when he saw that picture of our extended family, which is bigger than what I showed you on the screen. And he's also very good at mathematics. In fact, he has been placed in an advanced mathematics class that's very, very good for his age. Milo is a good conversationalist, a good listener, and a very positive person. Milo's father is from Germany, and Milo spends a few weeks in Munich each year, and his grandparents come here to America once in a while too, with his paternal grandparents and his great-grandmother. I recently gave him a 2-row button accordion that he can use to play some German songs, learn them here in America before he goes, and play them when he gets to Germany. One of the things I did with my accordions and my banjos and my other tin whistles and all, whenever I went to a foreign country, I tried to play one of their songs, and that ingratiated me with the people, made it a little easier to communicate with them, because when you travel the world, not everybody likes Americans, and it's a little difficult sometimes. And I was usually there when there were trouble issues, and I had to help solve them, so it was very good to be able to break the ice with the instrument. I hope he can do the same thing when he's over in Germany. Milo gets good grades in school and is pretty good at sports. He studied martial arts. I can never remember which martial art he studied. It was one of the many. All I remember is that they called the leader Sensei. That's how they addressed the leader in the martial arts classes. He's a runner and a skier and likes to fish in the pond near his home with his friend. He has recently taken up tennis. He is interested in music and is learning to play the drums as well. When I was a kid, I played the drum. Not drums, I just played a snare drum in the Michigan Avenue School band. So he likes to play the drums as well as experiment from time to time with the banjo, the button accordions, harmonica, and a harmonica that I gave him over the last year or two. He always carries his portable, I think it's a telephone, but I'm never sure, but I never see him use it. He likes games and puzzles of all kinds. Milo came to visit Joyce and I this summer and stayed 1 week. He had been here before several times with his parents and their family dog. But this time he came alone, and Joyce and I had more time to spend with him. Milo and his older sister, Anna, attended a day camp near Winsted for a week one summer. They both enjoyed that experience. I was much younger then. One day, while Milo swam and floated with the neighbor's children, he splashed around a bit, swam a bit, enjoyed the company. He knows that some of the children from other trips that he took here earlier. They're all growing up, of course. I kind of looked at him. I used to be a lifeguard at one time at Mount Tom when I was in college. I looked at him and I said to my wife, I think Milo needs a few more swimming lessons. So he's got a little way to go with his swimming. I should have given him some lessons, but I don't go in the water too much anymore for many reasons. During the days I took Milo around the area in my pickup truck, he loved the truck. He asked why it was so dirty. I told him that it was a farm truck, meant for hard work, not showing off to girls. I showed him where his great-great-great-grandfather's home was on Pratt Street, where he lived before he died. And I told him some of our family history, as much as I could, of the Winsted part of his ancestors. I took his photograph standing in front of the house. You see it there on the screen right now. He always had that baseball cap on, was usually pointed to the side one way or another, but here in the picture it seems to be pretty straight. I also took him to Soldiers Monument, where the name of his great-great-great-grandfather is inscribed inside the monument. But you can only see that when the monument is open, which is not very often. The monument's not always open. It's only on special times. I am told that you can get an appointment to have them open it for you so you can see what's inside. There's a plaque in there or something. I haven't seen it myself. And the monument does need a lot of work, and they're always trying to get grants and get people to give them money for that monument. In the mornings, Milo would go fishing. He brought his fishing pole down with him. We picked up some live bait at a local bait store and went to a spot in the cove by the dam at Highland Lake. Milo baited the hook. He brought his own fishing pole, as I said, from Maine. He casted it a few times, but eventually his hook got caught in the brush while casting his pole. While casting, his pole broke. We're up by the dam when he was doing that, on the lake side of the road. Milo then fished off of one of our docks and eventually caught a fish. We did go back to the bait store to buy a new pole for Milo because he broke it, but then we gave him back and he fished off our docks and eventually caught a fish. He threw it back, of course. I didn't have a camera with me at the time, so I couldn't take a picture of him with the fish. But that's a picture of him fishing off my new dock at Highland Lake. He tried some more fishing from day to day. The bait, as the bait man said, did live for many days if I kept it cool, which I did every day, threw some ice cubes in it. And he used it each day, but he never did catch another fish, so I couldn't take a picture of him holding a fish in his hand. Milo is a New York Yankee fan and sometimes goes to games at Yankee Stadium with his father. He always wears his baseball hat cocked to one side, as seems to be the fashion. Joyce and I took him to some Titan baseball games in Torrington, where, while there, we noticed some of his interests and talents. We sat in the last row at Fusenich Park, the baseball field down in Torrington. It was there even when I was a child. While there, I observed some of his good qualities as he stood behind us, always ready to make a run for a foul ball. Milo pays very close attention to detail and would occasionally point out a mistake made on the field or on the official scoreboard showing mistake on an umpire's call. "That was a strike, and the scoreboard registered a ball," said Milo. And soon the scoreboard would be corrected, and he would proudly point that out to us. Or he would say, "That shortstop just made an error," and he was always correct. He paid attention to detail. We missed the first game of a doubleheader that turned out to be a no-hitter thrown by the local pitcher. We went out to dinner, and we got there late. Milo wished he was there to experience that. A bit sad about that because we missed it. When a foul ball was hit out of the playing field into the parking lot, he was off like a shot. He was very quick and fleet of foot, with 10 or 20 other anxious young fans in an attempt to retrieve the baseball as a souvenir. He ended up with 2 or 3 baseballs or so during the 2 games that we attended. Once he had the balls, one for his friend in Maine, he looked for every opportunity to get the idle Titan players to autograph the latest retrieved baseball. Milo was not afraid or embarrassed to ask for an autograph. And as a result, he obtained many autographs and was quite excited and proud of them. He also was the first to identify one of the prizes they were giving out that night. They give out prizes all the time to keep people's interest between innings. And he rushed down there, was the first to get there, and he got one of the prizes. When I saw how excited he was about baseball and the Yankees, especially, I remembered one evening, I guess his father takes him to some Yankee baseball games in New York every 1 or 2 a year because he likes those Yankees. Especially, I remembered one evening that the owner of Wynn's Deli on Old Route 8 and now the ice cream store up here across from Capital Products, Terry Wynn, once won a New York Yankee raffle of a new Corvette painted in Yankee colors and pinstripes with a Derek Jeter autograph on the dashboard. Terry was asked a lot of questions by the Yankee organization by telephone beforehand and asked to come to Yankee Stadium to see a game with his family on a certain game day. While there with his family, he was told that he won the raffle and was presented with the keys to the car at home plate by Derek Jeter. And a picture was taken of him riding around the stadium in his new car. I've already showed you that picture. The picture was once hung on the wall over the ice cream cooler in a deli near the entrance. The next morning, I drove Milo in my pickup truck to Wynn's Deli for breakfast without telling him about Terry's experience at Yankee Stadium. I wanted to see the expression on his face when he saw the picture on the wall. To my surprise, the picture was no longer hanging on the wall. Terry went into the kitchen area and came back with the picture that he had rolled up for safekeeping and showed it to us while he told Milo the story of how he obtained the car. I took a picture of Milo and Terry holding the picture. I don't have a copy of that tonight, but I thanked him for letting me take the picture while Milo was finishing breakfast. Terry, a very amiable fellow, said, "I'll do you one better. Where will you be at 1:30 or so this afternoon?" I told him that we would be at our cottage at the lake. He said, "I'll come by with the car if it's not raining, and take Milo for a ride. It was an overcast, rain-threatening day. You can see from the pictures it's a little dark. I thanked him and prayed that it would not rain. I didn't tell Milo because I wanted to surprise him. It didn't rain, and true to his word, Terry came up to the cottage with a car and surprised Milo. He took him for a ride in the car, around the lake, and out on the highway. There were 6,000 miles or so on the car, as it had been used in local parades like the Laurel Parade, Festival Parade, and for other similar pleasing rides with people that were overjoyed to have a ride in that car. Terry doesn't mind doing it. He gets a lot of pleasure out of it too, because when he does it, he sees the children and other people also getting a lot of pleasure. Milo was overjoyed. He was overjoyed. He threw his arms up because it was a big surprise to him. He didn't know Terry was coming. He threw his arms up and made sounds of joy. And then he sat in the front seat. You can see him there sitting in the front seat and made sounds of joy again, right in front of the signature of Derek Jeter on the dashboard. I'm sure that he will never forget the experience, and he will never forget Terry, and will always be grateful to Terry for the experience and memory of riding in that car on that day. Milo and I went to True Value the next day or two to buy something. I always go down there. I try to do my shopping in town when I need that kind of thing that they sell. I introduced Milo to Brian, one of the owners. I mentioned the experience with Terry and the Yankee car to Brian, and he said that as a young boy in Florida, he was one of 9 children at the time, he had a baseball signed by the one and only Mickey Mantle, another famous Yankee, but lost it somewhere along the way. It's missing in action, that baseball. I took his picture with Milo. You see him there on the screen. Yeah, okay. Then, after the picture was taken, unfortunately, his partner, Mr. Jackson, came out to see what all the fuss was about and said that his wife once owned a baseball signed by Mickey Mantle, and she had also lost it somewhere along the way, misplaced it. Milo got a big kick out of that, as did I. We took Milo to a few restaurants in the vicinity because he said that he liked sushi and pizza. Neither restaurant was to his liking. He's fussy about his food. The crust was too thick on the pizza, and he said that he had had better sushi. This is a 9-year-old boy here. I have since found out that there is a better sushi place in West Hartford, in the area out there, and we'll take him there the next time he comes to Winston to visit. While here, I introduced Milo to the Cajun accordion, gave him one, and showed him some fundamentals. I have a Cajun accordion made by Mark Savoy. I gave him another accordion that was Cajun, but I also have one, and I play songs on that. And he was kind of interested in that. So I gave him a Cajun accordion and showed him some fundamentals about holding the instrument, etc. He was very quick to learn as I was showing and teaching him. We didn't do too much of it, but just enough to get him acquainted. I also showed him a DVD of some simple 5-string banjo lessons. He already had the banjo and related paraphernalia that I sent to him a few months before when my wife went to Maine. He was very quick to point out any mistakes that I made with my finger positioning as he watched intently as I showed him some licks. He watched and listened intensely. He wanted to learn. He wanted to know if I could play the songs, so I played him a little bit of simple songs, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, etc., just so he could get an idea. And I did show him how to play a waltz rhythm. He corrected me a few times when he saw that I had put my fingers in the wrong place. He was watching the DVD, and then he saw me make a mistake, and he pointed out to me, very attentive to detail. Milo pays attention to detail. I like that. Maybe that's because of his math, why he's so good at math. Not much gets past him. We took Milo to ride the bumper cars at R&B Sports World here in Winsted. He really enjoyed that. There were others there, but nobody seemed to bump anyone else. They just rode around in circles until their time was up. Sometimes they bumped against the wall. While there, we also played a round of miniature golf. Joyce, Milo, and myself. They have 18-hole course there. Joyce took Milo to see the American Indians' sacred white buffalo up near Goshen. But they were closed, so he never got to see the prized white buffalo. Joyce was very excited about showing them that. When the week was over, Joyce drove him halfway to Maine. She had picked him up the week earlier to meet his mother, who drove him the rest of the way home, instruments and instruction books and DVDs in hand. Now, I read that to you tonight because I think Milo has a lot of very good features. He's pretty well-rounded for his age. He's headed in the right direction. He's attentive. He listens to people. He pays attention to detail. He's a positive thinker and wants to try to get things done. He's strong enough to go after what he wants, like getting signatures on baseballs and interrupt people and do what he has to do that. And whenever we tried to show him anything while he was here, he was very, very attentive and tried to learn. The person at the bait store tried to show him things with the fishing pole and how to bait the hook and how to keep the minnows alive, et cetera, et cetera. And he was very, very sharp, picked it up right away. So I did that tonight because I think a lot of the qualities that Milo has, our town leaders should have. And many of them do not have those qualities. So with that now, I'm going to read my open letter, which is mainly about the town of Winchester, where Milo's ancestors, part of them, lived. I mean, he's got all kinds of ancestry. He's got Hungarian, he's got Irish, he's got Italian, he's got German, whatever else is in the German side of the family. So, you know, he's a guy that has a very, very, very varied family, and we're part of it up here in Winsted, going back to my great-great-grandfather and great-grandfather and his great-great-great-grandfather. So I'm now going to say, Dear Milo, we thank you for coming to visit your grandparents this summer here in Winsted, Connecticut. We are both very impressed with the way that you are developing as a human being and a person. We both can see how having strong parents that work hard for a living and are attentive to your needs is paying off for all of you. You are lucky to have excellent health and a positive and healthy environment with a good community and excellent schools to live in. Your parents are doing a fine job with your development. Be thankful for that. This letter is meant to help you make responsible decisions as you grow up and be accountable for the decisions that you are allowed to make. Many of our leaders don't do that. I will use the town of Winchester problems and thought processes as an example. Your great-great-great-grandfather's hometown that we introduced you to this summer is now having serious financial problems that may set the town and residents back economically and financially for many, many years. Many residents, old and young, for a few generations to come will certainly be adversely affected by the inability of our leaders over the years to manage the financial growth of the town with additional profitable revenue growth, reduced budgets, and balanced budgets. Growth in additional profitable recurring revenue has been slow to come in Winsted, as many opportunities for growth in the recurring profitable portion of the grand list have been fumbled and intentionally refused by the town leaders for many years. There's always a reason. Plans pile up at great expense, but nothing ever seems to get done. The charter is cumbersome and meant for a different age. The finance board is populated with incumbents. I always have trouble with that word for some reason. Maybe it's because I don't like the incumbents, I don't know. It's populated with incumbents that are not schooled in finance. Now, can you imagine that, Milo? A finance board with people that don't know anything about finance. If you went for your drum lesson and the drummer teacher didn't know anything about drums, you wouldn't get very far. So they don't know anything about finance, they don't understand finance, and will not listen to experts that do. One thing I noticed about you, Milo, is you do listen to people who are trying to help you learn something new. I saw many examples of that while I was here. And you are grateful to them for trying to help you. The Board of Selectmen is populated with a majority at this particular time that is very politically motivated. Individuals rather than people interested in, politically motivated individuals rather than people interested in the best interests of the town. They're not interested in the best interests of the town. They're more interested in the best interests of their political party. The majority in our town, the liberal Democrats at this time, won't even listen to the fiscal conservative Democrats. And if you don't agree with their approach and their ideas, then you are either shunned from the party or you are not invited to many of the meetings they have, and certainly not want to have you running for re-election. Many examples of that I've seen over the last 10 years. Milo, you're not that way. You listen to people. You talk to people. You communicate with people. Your grandmother thinks you're one of the best communicators she's seen in a long time. You're very open to new ideas, and that's what I think the leaders of our town should be. And when you become a leader, you should do the same. Everybody has something to offer. You can learn from anybody. I'm still learning at my age. I'm trying to learn some banjo songs for you, simple ones, that are out of your instruction DVD, and some various Cajun songs, so when you come down next time, we can play them together. You're never too old or too young to learn. The Board of Education is populated by people that believe that money is the answer to all educational problems. And the educators are members of one of the strongest labor unions in the country. Many of the educators have tenure. That means they can never be fired. That means that once they get their minimum amount of years in to achieve tenure, that unless they move schools somewhere else or do some things like that, they can't be let go. I don't think that's too good. That doesn't encourage people to try to improve themselves. It kind of encourages people to slack off. And Milo, you should continue to try to learn, continue with mathematics, continue with your drumming, continue with your sports activities, Continue with all the activities you have that where you try to learn. And you try to learn from others, and who better to learn from than people who know and have the ability to help teach you. Meanwhile, the ability for the tax-paying residents in our town to keep with the financial pressures of the fiscal deterioration of the infrastructure in the town, developed for 80 factories long ago, and now has far less, coupled with inflation, coupled with unfunded mandates by higher government entities like the state and the federal, breakup of the traditional family structure that we seem to be going through in America now, Winston and Connecticut, growth in the need for special attention by many residents. Many residents now need special attention. Some deserve it and really need it and should get it. Others are questionable. The loss of jobs. Jobs are very key. You don't have jobs, and you should always have a job, Milo, once you finish your education. I would encourage you to work along the way, too, in small jobs like raking leaves, shoveling snow, that kind of thing, so you get a taste for that, and you deal with people, and you see that some people are demanding, some are not as demanding, and some are a joy to work with and for, and some aren't. But we have a tremendous loss of jobs here, and without jobs, it's very different to grow a community. It's tax base. That's put a gigantic strain on the existing residents' ability to pay for services that were meant for a different day and age and a different way of living in many respects. We're living terribly differently now than we did when I was your age, Milo. And when you're my age, people will be living terribly different than they are now. The town of Winchester has not been able to live within its means for many, many years. The charter is not followed, and often advice of the financial professionals is ignored, as it is being ignored now, as are many state statutes and perhaps some articles in the United States Constitution as well. The Taxpayers Association is always bringing that to the attention of the leaders of our town and trying to get them to understand when they're either skating close to or actually not obeying the state statutes or the Constitution or even the local charter. We just had the American Civil Liberties Union come in here and scold our leaders for not following our own charter and the state statutes when it came to public speaking during selectmen meetings. Politics prevail here, and the situation is getting worse from year to year. Now, Milo, you're a mathematician. You understand math. I'm a mathematician. I got a math degree as well. 1 and 1 equals 2. 2 and 2 equals 4. Sometimes the politicians will try to tell you that 1 and 1 equals 4 and 2 and 2 equals 7. But your attention to detail and your observation capability and your questioning ability will find out the truth. And when you find out the truth, it's always best to deal with the truth and the facts and not to try to fool people. Deal with the truth. The selectmen and finance board members have not set up a responsible system of checks and balances to protect them from financial mismanagement and have not grown the profitable recurring portion of the grant list or managed the cost structure effectively. They haven't done that at all. As a result, we're in very, very, very deep financial trouble at this time. Recently, we've had the greatest recession since the Great Depression, and we weren't prepared for that. Years of bad budgeting has been going on for a long time in our town, and the possible theft of millions of dollars from the coffers over the years and commingling of funds. Now, the local leaders are trying to blame all this on one person who was accused of stealing money. And yes, that's part of the problem. They should have known about that if they had reasonable checks and balances all the way along. It's just about like when you try to learn your instruments, you learn it slowly, lick by lick, piece by piece. And all the DVDs you have will tell you the same thing. Go slowly, practice, 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 practice. Don't try to go 3 steps when you're not able to go 1 or 2. But we never did any of that. So if the person did steal the money, the majority of the responsibility lies with the leaders, because the charter says that they are responsible for the finances of the town. And they are also able to write job descriptions for any member of the town that works for the town so that they can preserve the checks and balances they need to make sure that the budget's balanced, money is spent wisely, we can account for it all, etc., etc., etc. It was just like when you were watching my fingers when I played the banjo and said to me, Brian, her grandfather, they call me another name, a German name for grandfather, but you had used the wrong finger on the wrong string. That's what Milo told me. He was very attentive. He watched those umpires. He watched those error producers. And when somebody hit a home run at the Titan game, he said, that's going to be a home run when it left the bat. And sure as heck, it was a home run. The town hasn't paid millions in overdue bills for the town and the schools for goods and services. So we're about, $2 million behind. I'm paying bills. We're paying last year's bills with this year's money. We're going out trying to get a grant anticipation note, and we might have to put out a large, huge, very large one-time tax to try to get even again. Some pension funds have been underfunded. Now, that is common nature when a company is in trouble and they're about to go broke. They start to reach for the pension fund money. And often when they do go broke, there is no pension money left and the people don't get any pensions. And the way that happens is slowly but surely. We'll take a little bit out of the pension fund. Oh, now we'll take a little more out of the pension fund. Oh, now we'll take a little more out. Next thing you know, there's nothing left in the pension fund. But checks and balances should present that. Taking positive action when you see it happening is the other thing you have to do with your checks and balances. And then, of course, you have to manage your budget in such a way that you don't get into that pickle in the first place, where you have to rob your pension funds. Our credit rating has been reduced 4 times in the last few years. We have a lousy credit rating now, very difficult. Have to pay more interest, of course, if you do get a loan with a lousy credit rating, but that makes it even harder to get a loan in the first place. Try it as a person. Milo, you always must make sure that you have a good credit rating. If you spend money, you better be able to pay for it. And you want to make sure that if you owe money, you pay for it as you agreed to with the lender. Our fund balance, that's our savings account, that's our piggy bank, is depleted and tremendously below recommended prudent levels. Advisors, Moody's and people like that, the credit agencies and the banks and all, say that we should have about 15% of our annual expenditures and revenue in the fund balance. We don't have that at all. We got close to zero right now. It's another one of our big problems. So we have deficit spending of a couple million. We got debt of another million or a million and a quarter. And we're in real trouble here. We got a lousy credit rating and a zero fund balance. So we're close to zero. It varies from week to week and month to month, but we're in deep trouble. Home values are depreciating here in this town, in this area, as a result of many things, including national and state financial situations, but also our own town. There are people that are not depreciating in the country because of the federal problems. There are people that aren't depreciating in the state because of the state problems. But we are one. We are depreciating. And we will most likely deteriorate more over the next 3 or 4 years for certain. People aren't buying homes in this area now. There's nothing to attract them here except for what they consider to be inordinate taxes and very little future for the next 10 to 20 years in our town. The test scores at the local schools, K through 6, kindergarten through 6th grade, are in the bottom 30% of the 169 towns in the state. Now, you're lucky, Milo. You're in a good town with good education, and you're doing very well. Your mom and dad have a business there, and they're doing very well. It's hard work. We all know that. But we're not as fortunate in our town. Extremely large property taxes are on the horizon, and the current taxpayers' ability to pay is very questionable. There are a lot of people in town, our town, that are elderly, and they can't afford to pay the taxes, and they don't want any depreciation on their property because that's something they had planned to use in their retirement. Maybe sell their home, have the money to rent a small cottage or a small apartment, and have money to spend in their retirement. When properties depreciate, that goes. That won't help any. Now, also, people that live from hand to mouth all the time, they're hurting too. And there are a lot of them now with the way the feds, the state, and the town finances are going. A lot of them are without jobs. A lot of them have entry-level jobs. A lot of them have less than 30-hour-a-week jobs, so the managers don't have to spend any money on their medical plans and things like that. It's very hard on everybody. Now, getting that point across to people is very difficult. Now, we do have a charter change on our next November 5th, on the November 5th ballot for the selectmen to take back the Charter Water and Sewer Commission and wipe out the Water and Sewer Commission that was put in 10 years or so ago, maybe a little more, because the selectmen couldn't manage it then. Now the selectmen want to bring it back because they want to be able to raise the water and sewer prices without going for the permission of the taxpayers. That's not a good practice. We need that check and balance. We need to make sure that somebody's looking out for all the water and sewer users. We got to make sure that water and sewer users aren't paying for the sins of the managers and leaders in the town when they misspend the money and then they reach into their pocket, commingle some funds. We don't want that to happen again like it happened years ago. I personally have suggested that everybody that has water and sewer vote the current incumbents out, no matter what party they're in. Vote them out of office on November 5th, and vote no on the charter change question. Now, we do need some changes to the charter. As I said earlier, we need a lot of changes to the charter. But giving it back to the selectmen who can't even handle their own business and are in serious financial trouble is not the right thing to do. So if I told you, Milo, go take lessons from a banjo player or an Cajun accordion person that doesn't know how to play the instruments and never even heard of the music, you'd think I was crazy. But that's what they do here. They do those kind of things all the time. They put trust in people that they shouldn't be for the future of the residents of the town. And that has to stop. We can't keep doing that, or we'll be even in worse shape than we are now. We're very close and could go bankrupt. We're very close to bankruptcy. We're very close to the state coming in, although the state doesn't want to come in. They want us to solve the problem ourselves by raising taxes. But the big tax increase is going to further present problems for the town with depreciation of property values, people not wanting to come to pay the taxes, and all that kind of thing. We have a lot of problems in our town because a lot of our properties in town have contamination, and it costs a lot of money to clean that up because of all the various rules in the Fed and the state and the local level. So we're having enough problems there as it is with that. So my own view is we should not vote any incumbents into the Board of Education. We should not vote any incumbents into the Board of Selectmen. The current Board of Selectmen has packed all the commissions and committees in town with non-growth people to protect the watershed from having any factories or any large Walmart-type stores around here, which they don't like. They'll go to Torrington for all that, but they don't want it in their own backyard. So we're really in trouble here in that respect, because even if we change these incumbents, which I think we should do, and it's just like you, Milo, if you have a banjo teacher or a martial arts teacher, or you have a drum teacher, or a tennis teacher, or a running instructor, and they're not teaching you anything, matter of fact, they're giving you a lot of bad practices, and you're not learning anything, and the more you try to learn from them, the less they want to teach you, then it's time for you and your mom and dad to consider perhaps changing to somebody else. And that's what we need to do in our town now. We need to change to somebody else. We need to change to people that are young and enthusiastic, or even middle-aged and enthusiastic, and have ideas and want to do the things that are best for the town, and want to tackle the hard issues, and want to be open-minded, and want to be positive, and want to pay attention to detail, and do have some math background, and do know a bit about business, preferably having run a business. They even say if they had failed running a business, they've learned a lot more than, say, people or educators and all who've never run a business and don't really know what it is to have to make tough decisions in their life when it comes to laying people off, not giving them raises, not increasing their insurances, not letting them remain on tenure, maybe even firing them if worse comes to worse. When I was a director of international computers in England, I was the first one to lay anybody off in 100 years. I gave them a good deal, I let them years pay and all that, but the person wasn't performing and wasn't doing us any good. There were many, many people in the company that were in that position, and I was there to try to straighten that out. So there are tough decisions to be made, hard decisions to be made, and you know, we all have to make them. When Milo didn't like, when you didn't like your food, your pizza, when you didn't like your sushi, you told us, and we said, okay, we won't take you for pizza or sushi at those restaurants anymore. We'll try to find a better restaurant that you do like. So feedback is important. Give feedback to your mom and dad. Give feedback to your teachers. Give feedback to people in a nice, polite way, which you have plenty of those qualities, so you won't have any trouble with that. And then they will either change their way or they will find some other way to help you. So I am now going to wind up this letter, Milo, and say, I'm glad you came down here. We learned a lot from you. We saw you. We think you're going in the right direction. Keep it up. And what I'm trying to say to our local leaders here is, if you pay some attention to the way Milo approaches things, maybe it'll help you approach things that way in the town. Now, he's young, he's only 9, but he's learned a lot for his age, and he's going in the right direction, and we're very proud of him. With that, I'll say, thank you, Milo, your grandfather, Brian O'Haron. Now, to the other people watching the program, get out and vote on November 5th. I wouldn't vote for any incumbents. I wouldn't vote for the charter change. Try to get people in that will listen to you, take advice from experts, follow the good practices, and try to rebalance our town. With that, I say thank you very much for watching. Good luck with the town. Good luck, Milo, in your future. Good night.